By the turn of the millennium, African leaders had articulated a bold vision for the continent's political, economic, social, developmental, and cultural revival. They realized that Africa's new integration processes needed strong institutions, good planning, implementation processes. Hello and welcome to the program. I am Daniel Makokera, and this is the story of that journey. A palpable air of excitement, the flagship development program of the African Union is born, signed into life by 20 leaders on the continent. A game changer, the first of its kind, NEPAD, or the New Partnership for Africa's Development, is a story of big ideals and lofty ambitions. A story of reinvention and transformation. A story of progress.
There is a striking fact in the genesis of NEPAD. And that striking fact is the combined genius of Thabo Mbeki, Olusegun Obasanjo, and Abdoulaye Wade, whom I qualify as critical leaders in the thinking that helped shape Africa's development in the last 60 years.
Pan-Africanists argued that Africa could only be strong and take its place among the world's economic and political powers if it was united. An Africa divided into more than 50 countries was destined to be politically and economically weak.
The one thing that united, that genuinely united the continent, was the struggle for the total liberation of the continent. Its area of focus was, let's end this colonialism and apartheid and all that. I'm saying practically this is what united the continent. That leadership also recognized that apart from these issues of colonial and racist oppression, there was challenge of poverty and underdevelopment. And therefore, let this be the new area of focus. Hence, let us look at what needs to be done with regard to that particular issue, the eradication of poverty and underdevelopment. That's how NEPAD was born.
That new partnership was based on two fundamental principles.
The first pillar is that we need to own the narrative of our development. So we need to design a program which respect the values that we want to enhance. And the second pillar was about governance. If we can fix the issues of bad governance, the issues of inequality, the issue of adapted public policies, then we can lay the foundations of a development that we own. Fundamentally, NEPAD is about dignity. So from the start, the perspective of integrating the Secretariat institutionally into the African Union was given as a priority. So it took several years between 2003 and 2010 to finalize the first step of that integration.
NEPAD was often viewed as the baby with the African Union as its mother. The problem was, the African Union was increasingly being viewed as an inefficient bureaucracy with poor implementation, funding shortages, and overlapping rivalries. In January 2018, Rwandan President Paul Kagame was elected as the chairperson of the African Union. He was tasked with pushing through reform processes and had already spent 2 years working on a plan.
In 2016 in Kigali, African heads of states are questioning the efficacy of the union. And they establish, define, and a diagnosis which is fundamentally reflected by a sense of frustration regarding the speed at which we attain our objectives of integration.
The Kagame report was a blueprint for change, with 3 major reforms: to speak with one voice, to rationalize what is and isn't working.
And the third aspect, objective of the reform, is how can we divide labor amongst all the entities of the union so that we can better work together.
Kagame was the driving force behind the reform process of the AU and also initiated a historic agreement about free trade in Africa.
NEPAD's mission was to eradicate poverty and integrate Africa into the global economy with focus on good governance.
During the Nouakchott meeting in 2018, a decision was taken which would transform NEPAD into AUDA-NEPAD, the African Union Development Agency.
La prospérité du continent, c'est ce que nous recherchons au quotidien dans chacun de nos États. C'est ce que aussi l'Union africaine a formulé dans sa vision 2063, l'Afrique que nous voulons. Et pour arriver à cette Afrique que nous voulons, il y a des étapes. Le NEPAD nous a donné vraiment des voies certaines. Si nous les suivons, nous arriverons à cette Afrique que nous voulons. En termes de connectivité sur le continent, en termes également de connexion sur les voies de communication, route rail, connexion aérienne, portuaire. Et c'est ça qui va développer le commerce intra-africain. Nous venons de lancer la zone de libre-échange continentale, la ZLECAf. Celle-ci ne pourra avoir de sens que lorsque nous commercerons, surtout entre nous. Si nous n'avons pas les voies, les routes, les chemins de fer pour commercer, la ZLECAf sera un vœu pieux. Donc il faut développer l'infrastructure dans le continent. Il faut développer l'agriculture. Et là, on revient aux 2 programmes phares du NEPAD.
Working closely with both the public and private sectors, regional integration across the continent is in full swing. It's not just a bridge, but a lifeline, a physical example of the African continental free trade area. The bridge highlights the team building, regional cooperation, and democratic values that are the calling card of all AUDA-NEPAD projects.
It took a bit of time to actually move away from very traditional donor projects into recognizing that this was about transforming our economic systems. So in CADAP, we then worked as part of NEPAD to actually support the countries. So it comes up very much building on the instruments, on the philosophy, on the energy that NEPAD had meant to deliver, and therefore extremely integral. And very much, in fact, you cannot talk about the NEPAD vision in terms of economic growth, in terms of job creation, in terms of human well-being, without connecting to agriculture and the other way around. That's why actually leading into what is now called the Malabo decision in 2014, which was actually the renewal of the CADAP decision, there was now very clear and firm targets that had to be met. This all came from the fact that countries are now engaged, they recognized the value, they understood the bigger picture, and actually things were roaring in terms of bringing agriculture. And this is what we saw. In fact, one of the results is that agriculture was firmly back on the priority list in development aid, development financing, and in national development plans.
In the next 10 years, mathematically, 90% of the current heads of states in the continent will no longer be heads of states. So you will have a change of leadership. So if there is one thing you can do, is please invest yourself in making sure that the upcoming leadership is a transformative one and allows Africa to implement Agenda 2063.
But the agency has done more than just projects. Under Dr. Mayakis' leadership, it has influenced policy.
The other strength is that we have reached a degree of cooperation with the African Union Commission where today we are recognized as an efficient institution which can deliver with integrity and accountability. Accountability is really one of our big comparative advantages.
He says the key is having good people to work with.
The first is that I can't hide the fact that I'm proud to have led the Secretariat to the African Union Development Agency. In terms of strength, I think we have a highly dedicated staff. Many of the colleagues that are here could be working the World Bank, IMF, FAO, but they have somehow a sense of wanting to work for the continent. And you should never take for granted that.
He leaves behind a string of success stories, some large, some less visible, but all aiming to showcase the story of Africa's vision, a prosperous, united, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own people and a significant player on the world stage. A united and peaceful Africa run by Africans for Africa. As Dr. Mayaki prepares to hand over the baton to his successor, one is comforted with the fact that a good foundation has been laid here for generations to come in integrating our continent. I'm Daniel Makokera. Thank you for watching.